Here they are. Well, you all know what is an orangutan. You all know that they are our closest living relatives. We only find them in the tropical forest of Borneo and Sumatra. They're about our size. They're super smart too. So can you imagine to be an animal our size, to have to move through the treetop, through the canopy, 30, 40 meters above the ground, to look for food, for example? Well, this is what the orangutans are doing. It's amazing to look at them in their natural environment when they do that. They have evolved with their habitat for millennia. They know exactly where to find food and when to find food when they are in the forest. And this is something that always amazes me, to realize how adapted this species is to the equatorial forest. Things started to change for the orangutan when people arrived in Borneo or Sumatra about 10, 12,000 years ago. They started by exploiting timber resources and other resources. More recently, we saw the development of agriculture in the area. In our case, where I'm working, it's mostly oil palm plantation. The result is that the forest is fragmented, the forest has changed. Orangutans, by the way, means people of the forest. So we were very surprised to see that over the years, these animals are leaving more and more the forest and starting to live or to use the oil palm plantation. This came as a surprise to us, of course. But as I said earlier, this species is very, very smart, very resilient. And this is a story I would like to share with you today. It's not doom and gloom. I really find this story full of hopes for the future of a species like the orangutan, that now if you want to see in Sabah, you go to a plantation. I am Dr. Marc Ancrenaz. I am the scientific director of Hutan. We are located in Borneo, and let me introduce to you Ocean. Ocean is the daughter of Jenny. Jenny is a wild orangutan that we have been following for the past 25 years. When we started Hutan, we wanted to know if this species, animals like Jenny or Ocean, were able to survive in disturbed forest, in forest that has been used by people. Because 30 years ago, people didn't believe it was possible for an orangutan to survive outside of primary forest. So we started to study by following individuals like Jenny or Ocean, how do they survive in disturbed forest? And actually, Jenny showed us that indeed, for an orangutan, it's not a big deal to find food in a forest that has been transformed by people. Before going on, I want to really thank this team. This is a team of researchers following orangutans in the forest. Every day they go to the forest, they follow the animals, they try to understand the ecology of the animals in these new types of habitats. I am here just a messenger to present the results of their hard work. They are the real heroes. This is a view of where we work. So you see the forest has been extremely disturbed, extremely fragmented. But as I just mentioned, these people of the forest, these orangutans, they start to go into the plantation more and more. So the question as a scientist, as a conservationist, the first question we had in mind, why? Well, what we know now is that the orangutan are going to the plantation to disperse. If they want to move from one patch of forest to the next, well, sometimes they have no choice. They have to cross a plantation. They can use the palms, or they can use their foot. Actually, these are camera trap pictures. In Borneo, wherever you put camera traps, even in a primary intact forest, you'll get a lot of orangutan walking. It's very interesting because when scientists follow this kind of species, even if they are fully habituated to us, you hardly see them on the ground. But as soon as there is no people around, you catch them on camera traps. Why? Because I think they used to be more terrestrial in the past, before people arrived. When people arrived 10, 12,000 years ago, they started to hunt the orangutan. So the orangutan went up in the trees. Which means that the orangutan we know today is a result of a co-evolution between people and our cousin, the orangutan. When they enter this kind of new landscape, of course, they face new problems. For example, when trees have been removed along a drain or along a small river, orangutan cannot cross. This causes a fragmentation of the population. So at Utan, we established orangutan bridges, and it works. Sometimes we see animals coming close to the villages, and they're using electrical cable. This can, of course, be an issue for electrocution. And more in Sabah, we see orangutan crossing the highways when they want to move in these new landscapes, which, of course, is a risk of collision with vehicle. Another reason why the orangutan are going to the plantation is, of course, for food. The orangutans are obsessed by food. Sometimes they pull out the leaves of the young palms. It's a problem because it has a negative impact on the growth of the palm. So it's a problem we need to work with as conservationists with all palm growers. They also eat their fruits, of course, which is not an issue at all because there is so many fruits in this plantation. Orangutans are great apes. They will build a nest every night to sleep. Well, in a plantation, they use a palm to build their nest. What we have seen very recently, it's something we haven't published yet, orangutans are also building their nest on the ground sometimes. When they feel safe enough, when there is not enough large trees, they will build a nest on the ground. This has never been reported before. And of course, females, they breed, which came to us as a surprise. So the understanding we have today of this situation is summarized here. Imagine a landscape, a mosaic landscape with patches of forest here and there. Some of the orangutan living in the forest, they will go back and forth between the forest and the plantation. Some females who have been able to survive in this mosaic landscape, you know, females, unlike in our species, female orangutans, they really stay where they were born. They are not dispersing at all. This is what Jenny or Ocean showed us over the years. So if a female is put somewhere, she will hang until all the trees are destroyed, if there is forest conversion. A lot of these females have been able to actually survive in this mosaic landscape. And this is the incentive for males to cross the landscape, to look for breeding opportunities. So this is a way a metapopulation of orangutan seems to work in this mosaic landscape. But you remember, orangutan means people of the forest in Malay. Even if they are using this mosaic landscape, they cannot survive without tree. So this is something that we realized long ago at Hutan, and we started to do a lot of reforestation. And I'm very pleased that today Amanda is with me, and Amanda, who is hiding over there, is going, you'll hear what she's going to do.
How do you press? Is it?
The green one.
So, how do we improve the living conditions for wild orangutans outside of the forest habitat? It is imperative that we create more space for them to forage food. But moreover, we need to create a safe passage for orangutans to move from one forest patch to another. As mentioned by Mark, for the past 15 years, Hutan has placed importance in reforesting landscape with native forest trees to connect fragmented forests along the Kinabatangan River. Now, we have seen a tremendous success of tree growth, but we all know that does not come easy or quickly. As everyone knows, the care for a seedling does not stop right after you plant one. You need to take care of it. You need to maintain it. You need to prune it. You need to make sure that all the basic necessities of seedlings are met. Now imagine tens and thousands of seedlings that you need to take care per year. That takes hard labor, sweat, and strenuous effort to ensure that they survive and grow. And this all to say would not be possible without the dedication and patience of my colleagues here, hail from the Sukau community, or as we say, Orang Sungai. In Malay, it means river people. Now, we expect that wildlife with an extensive roaming range like orangutans, elephants, clouded leopards, and even sun bears, they will benefit this forest corridor. But there's two questions that come into mind. Number one, what other wildlife that can benefit from this habitat restoration? And number two, is there a possibility that wildlife can survive in a plantation landscape if we plant forest trees in between? So here I would like to share how a piece of land owned by a plantation company that Hutan had reforested with native forest trees in between palm trees that are still standing. For 4 years and counting of continuous maintenance, we have seen most trees grow up to 4 meters high. And the floor that used to be densely covered in grass and shrubs are slowly covered with leaf litter. This is interesting for us because the floor change can invite forest species into the corridor. And that is why we do biodiversity monitoring to not only document, but also to identify presence of wildlife that might be utilizing this forest restoration between two fragmented forests. Here you see we even have recorded the critically endangered Sunda pangolin, but also other arboreal species that are not only rare, but also endangered. Here you see is a camera trap that is set up on a newly planted seedling in a plantation. With the transition, you can see there are a lot of wildlife actively utilizing this area. And this is amazing for us because when we see wildlife uses this site not only as a food source, but also to deposit their waste, they introduce new seeds to germinate in that plot. And this mimics a natural forest regeneration. Here is an overview of the biodiversity monitoring that we have done. We have recorded 176 species throughout the reforestation site and its adjacent landscape, which is the plantation and also the forest. As expected, we recorded higher number of species in the forest habitat. However, it is interesting for us to see in the reforestation site, there is a mix of forest species and urban species. What is interesting over a long time that we wanted to see there is an increase of forest species recorded there, and then there's a decrease of urban species. So, this is a shrew that we find in our monitoring plot. There is little information to no study of this scarcely found shrew. But before that, people on the floor, can I ask if anyone has a lighter? Can I have a show of hands if anyone has a lighter? Yes? No? It's all right. At least we all know there's no group of arsonists over here for today. But it's okay because I got a lighter. As I've mentioned, there is little information to no study about this shrew. But what we do know is that when we measured this shrew, it is 8 centimeters long from its tip of the nose down to its tail. So it's the size of this lighter. It is endemic to Borneo and possibly the smallest terrestrial mammal in the world, excluding bats. Bats, they have smaller species. Yeah. So, as you can see, this petite shrew, with its high metabolic body, it feeds on invertebrates. And it is a remarkable find for us because they play an essential ecological role in controlling insect population, and they are a vital engineer for nutrient cycling. So this tiny, feisty little machine plays an integral role in healthy forest regeneration. So what do we get out of a healthy forest landscape? More trees growing, meaning more food for wildlife. So that means it's beneficial not only for the wildlife, but also for orangutan. People on the floor, this all comes into one full circle. How not only other wildlife benefit from this, but also Ocean, the juvenile orangutan that Mark had introduced just now earlier, it gives her a chance to explore and also to find her way to thrive in this puzzling mosaic landscape.
You won't have the end. It's okay. I said earlier it was, for me at least, a story of hope, because what Jenny and the other orangutan that we have been following for so long showed us is that they are resilient, they are adaptable, they can make it if we give them a chance. So most of our work now is to better understand the ecology of species like the orangutan, but more importantly, to use this knowledge to engage with all the stakeholders in the region to see with them how people, orangutans, elephants, and other species can live together. And to finish, I would remind everybody here that this problem, unfortunately, is not typical to Borneo. This is something coexistence with wildlife that we encounter more and more everywhere. But here again, I do think that if people, us included, give a chance to nature, we will be surprised by what nature can do. I'm still very hopeful for species like orangutans. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay here, Mark. Stay for a second. We're going to have a chance to ask a few questions. I think we're supposed to have a slide. I'm not sure if it's actually ready. I see a mic coming up. I appreciate it. So Sophie's telling me that theoretically on the back of your name tag, there's a QR code, but I believe that is not the case for everyone, sadly. So on the back of some of your name tag, there's a QR code. You guys are allowed to ask questions. The rest of you, take your phone, scan this, and you can ask questions via Slido. It's going to be sent over. I don't know if Kelly's got some coming to me. And we will get that going. And you can do this throughout the whole day. So it's going to be this code. Scan it, put your questions. So while Mark or anybody else is speaking, be like, oh, I want to ask about that. Type your question in, and then we'll ask it at the end. Still don't see anything coming. So I'll ask my own question, Mark.
There's a question.
There's a question. Good old-fashioned way, even no, there's a mic coming, actually. We'll at least do that bit of technology. That's okay, but mic's going to be better for everyone. Thank you.
Can what you're doing in Bhutan be extended to Kalimantan because of the politics involved?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't really specify. We are based in Sabah, which is a Malaysian part of the island. So our major efforts and activities take place in Malaysia, not Indonesia. And by the way, I think you can recognize me. I'm tall enough and I'm wearing pink. If you have any question, you can use the technology described by GJ. You can also catch up with me today. I'm here. I'm free after my talk. So
That's right. Both Amanda and Mark and all the conservationists are around. We'll take one more question right here.
Yeah, so is there coordination, or could there be some coordination with wildlife conservation groups, government, and developers to, when they are proposing a development, to require them to leave a corridor for the animals instead of cutting off these passages?
Yeah, well, there is a lot actually of communication, a lot of collaboration between NGOs, government agencies, and even the industry. Having said that, in our case, most of the damages to the habitat occurred in the past. There is not much deforestation happening where we are anymore. So we're in a stage where we need to just restore the entire landscape. So we do that, of course, with the government support, with the communities, because we are a community-based project, with other NGOs and research groups as well. In Sabah, there is good enough collaboration, I would say.
Great. Thank you, Mark. We're going to call it for questions. Mark and Amanda are going to be around. You can also visit them at their booth at various points. Mark's easy to find. Amanda is more fun size, so just go and find her. She's louder. So make sure you go and talk to them. We're going to give them a big round of applause. We're going to ask Amanda to step off the stage.